Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Life Science Rundown. This is Nicholas Catman with the FDA Group. Before we jump into our discussion for today, just a little bit about the FDA Group. We help life science companies in the areas of quality assurance, regulatory affairs, clinical operations, commissioning, qualification, and validation, as well as pharmacovigilance. We offer three different engagement models, which are consulting, staff augmentation, and full-time employee recruitment. So if you ever find yourself in need, just head over to thefdagroup.com to check us out and get in touch. So today I'm speaking with Catherine Lunardi. Hey, Catherine, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, Nicholas. And you?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for joining. So before we jump into our topic for today, would you kindly introduce yourself?
Yes, so thank you so much for having me today. My name is Catherine Lunardi. I've been the CEO of GenAIz for 10 years. I'm the founder of the company. My background is mostly working with pharmaceutical companies, biotechs, companies and research organization to help them deploy innovative information systems so that they can accelerate the pace at which they deliver new treatments, and they deliver those products successfully and safely to patient. As GenAIz CEO, I'm in charge of overseeing the organization, the development of the product, which is a data orchestration system that allows company to actively aggregate, consolidate their data without the hassle of cleaning up, harmonizing the data so that they could derive insights really quickly from this data.
Okay, very cool. Thank you for that. So what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to be talking about how to successfully deploy AI technologies, so artificial intelligence, within a GLP environment so that one could build a next-gen lab of the future based on these AI technology, following regulations, successfully deriving insights really quickly.
Okay. Well, for someone that is, heard a GLP environment, next generation, leveraging AI technology, that's certainly AI is the hottest of hot topics right now, and there's always a desire to, be ahead of the curve and create some really cutting edge technology and spaces where we can do our work. So when you're communicating and dealing with these people that are looking to kind of move into such an environment, what are some of the kind of the big challenges that people express to you in terms of their concerns?
So, this is a very good question. Most of the partners and customers we're working with have trouble, um, especially in the labs, with aggregating data from different instruments. So the first challenge is really these, especially for those organizations relying on clinical trials, sorry, they have massive amounts of data. No matter the cohort and the number of patients, you can generate hundreds of millions data points
Mm,
generated from different legacy system instruments with their own protocols, with their own formats. It becomes excessively difficult to quickly derive insights, especially when you don't have a big number of patients to rely on in phase two, for instance. So most of these customers will have even a handful of equipments, and the data that they need to work with is so different, and the formats are so different that it's excessively difficult to come up with insights early on in the process, as early as possible, in order to take a decision. Is this going to be a promising new treatment that we're considering? Do we need to go further, do more tests? And how long do we need to reach that type of insight so that we could go from one gate to another, either moving the products further down the line or actively taking the decision that it's not a good products for the market. So the complexity, the volume of the data and its nature, its format makes it very difficult to quickly assess the data to take a decision. I would add that within most of these companies, the process to ensure data integrity, as you know, is critical.
Right.
We need to make sure we rely on data that is accurate, that is safe for the patient to take a decision on, and all those regulations that we need to follow. Makes up for a complex quality review process. And this is a process that we need to go through in order to ensure the quality and the integrity and the safety of the data. But this process makes it somewhat difficult and costly to develop and to put a new product on the market. Where these AI technology could help a lot is first making sense of the data on a scientific perspective and ensuring that the data is compliant, it's cleaned up, there's no anomalies, there's no exception. If there are anomalies and exception, they are processed by humans so that we can understand what happened and be informed that there is potentially some issue with the data so that it could be corrected and taken into account when taking a decision. So most of these challenges, these are, I would say, the most critical challenges that we're facing right now or that our customers are facing in a GLP environment.
So in terms of what is the current state for a lab and what is the future state? What are we as an industry building into? So if you could kind of paint a picture for perhaps what's traditional, what are people used to? Where are we today? But also where are we going? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, not all companies um, um, are at the same stage in terms of their innovation process, their ability to integrate new technologies, and that's explained by either the size of the company, the acquisitions that a company may have gone through. So there's so many factors that can affect the state of the company in terms of its ability to deploy new technologies. But we see a wide range of processes in terms of their automation. We could see processes that are fully manual. Some companies have still rely on lab workbooks that are handwritten, for instance, where the work is done, it's handwritten in a lab workbook, the process is followed. It's a good quality process, but it's mostly manual to accommodate for the different customer expectations. In the case of a CRO, for instance, we have companies that have been able to deploy some AI technology to support some of the clinical trials process, to automate some of the work that's done managing data. But most of the companies still rely on manual or at least semi-manual Excel processes to move data from one stage to the other within the company. From the generation of data, then the data can be extracted within Excel, from lab workbooks that are still handwritten or even partially automated. Then the data is moved from one stage to the other using different types of tool and with the help of human beings actually reviewing it, manipulating it to make sure that it could be used successfully to produce an insight. So that, I would say, is the current state. I would talk about silos because that's something most people could relate to. We still have silos within an organization where different data is stored, and there's not much automation in moving data from a silo to another silo. And then we have the future state. Currently, I would say, with the different tools that are available out there, most companies have been exposed to AI, what AI could do. It's still these are really promising technologies. I would say that most customers explore the potential of AI. I'm sure we'll have the chance to discuss it further, how they do. But I would say that in the type of project we're currently working on with our customer and long-term partner, Celcarta, the objective is to fully automate data orchestration from end to end. So having human in the loops where it makes sense for human to actually validate, take the decision, corroborate, check for exception, anomalies, and this all being validated following the strict regulations. So being able to move data from one point to the other, having humans actually in the loops where their input is necessary to ensure quality of the data and that the right decisions are taken.
Yeah, I think a human in the loop is going to be there for quite some time. There's a whole bunch of reasons that that should be the case, and I think industry and the public at large should be comfortable that that's something that we all can agree on. So as I'm thinking about, the lab future state, thinking about AI, I know that I can't stay where I am, right? If I'm, running a lab, because if I'm not moving forward, then I'm moving behind, right? I'm moving backwards. So what would you say for somebody that's operating a lab that has heard enough about, all of these exciting technologies, and they want to at least take the first step toward taking a look at how they can advance the way they're currently doing things. How would you describe that first step?
So there's a lot of hype around AI, and that's very important as we do when we follow a strict, validated, and regulated process that we put that aside for a second. There's a lot of promises around AI, but it's very important to follow a sound and methodic approach in approaching AI. And yes, there's a lot of excitement, but I would say that first we need to clearly identify the challenge. What's the challenge? We don't deploy AI, we don't deploy a new machine just to deploy, just to be cool, you know what I mean? Or just for the sake of doing it. We deploy it because we want to create value for the organization. We want to become better, we want to scale, we want to add value, create a new service for our customers in terms of the analytics that we could provide. So that challenge needs to be clearly identified in the GLP environment. What's the challenge you want to address? Then we need to make sure that this aligns with the strategic goals of the organization. Some companies have a strategy of increasing, let's say, quality, improving or deploying quality by culture approach or by design approach. Some companies may have more of a growth perspective in mind, depending of the stage of the company. Some of them want to put their first product on the market, contemplate mergers and acquisitions. So based on the strategic goal of the company, that challenge needs to be validated just to make sure that there's an alignment so that we're not moving towards resolving a challenge that's not aligned with the strategic vision of the owners of the company or the C-suite of the company.
Mm.
Then we need to move to defining the concrete requirements and expectations. What are we going to concretely achieve? What's the, for instance, ROI? And from that perspective of those people involved, how is it going to change their lives for the better? So really concretely, like what we do when we validate, deploy a new system, we set expectations, the SLAs, what are the criteria of success for deploying this system? Are we going to reduce our costs 50%? Are we going to be able to be 25% faster in delivering the results? That needs to be clearly established because that's going to be the base for the contractual agreement, for the validation, for the testing. We're going to be, for the go, no go decision, we're going to be putting in place. And then we need to start with solution exploration, which involves not relying again on the hype of the technology, but concretely the most simple, cost-effective, efficient technology that can help resolve the challenge based on the concrete expectations that were set forward. And then I will never emphasize enough the importance of change management. Change management is everything. You can deploy the best system that solves the most critical challenge. If people don't
Mm,
embrace it, if they can't operate it, if they don't understand it, if it's so black box that they need to reproduce all the calculations from the AI, it's not worth anything.
mm,
So the stakeholder needs to be identified. Those whose work environment will be impacted positively by the change, they need to be involved. They need to understand what the change means so that we can improve collective well-being, not only for the patient, but also as well from those working in the company.
mm,
And then I would say that we need to focus on volume and complexity. So these processes that are really time consuming, where it's difficult to recruit people because nobody is really interested in doing that type of work, you know. These
mm,
are the processes that generally are easier to tackle first because you have a clear ROI, and typically people will like that this work is done by the machine and they can be elevated
mm.
as employees and be solicited in terms of more being involved with decision making, reviewing the results, coaching, being involved in communicating the results, and have their role bona fide from the deployment of the system.
Yeah, that's great insight. As I'm listening to you and I'm, putting myself in the seat of a listener, um, as in my excitement to leverage new technology, it seems very big and it can make somebody very nervous. But I think just taking a very practical approach and saying, where can I get the biggest bang? What are the priorities of the organization? And, assessing what is that. I think another thing that could be said about AI is you can take a low and slow approach. I don't think you have to jump in and say, on my first project, I'm going to change the whole thing. Let's take something that we know is maybe inefficient or could be improved upon, and let's take a look at what technologies exist in order to reduce cost, increase speed, increase accuracy, things of that nature. I think another thing to consider for people listening is, choosing a technology that you can experiment with, but then maybe relatively be able to exit, right? If it's not the right solution for you, doing something like that. I don't think, and this is, I've had lots of conversations in this area. I don't think people need to be too concerned about waiting, because there's so much technology out there. There's so
Mhm,
much that's coming. And what I've seen is the vendors are making it very easy to implement.
mhm,
So if I have a priority over here, and okay, this is my big priority, I want to work on this.
mhm,
But this technology, I can see how it can help, but I'm not sure if it's really the right time or if it's a big enough, a big enough bang for me to try it. I would be on the more liberal side and say go for it.
mhm.
Because again, as long as you're de-risking and say, look, if it's not right for me, I can exit. But also understanding that future vendors, they're either going to build on that technology or they're going to make it easy to, convert from one to the other. So I don't think that it's one of these things where it's, you have to redo the whole thing all at once, one time, and then you're good forever. I think it's going to be kind of building blocks.
So, so true. And this is exactly the type of approach that has worked for our customers in the past. And this is why we generally move towards, apologies, towards type of an assessment. Sometimes we recommend it. So we will, so what is an assessment? An assessment is an exercise, kind of an AI discovery exercise that will allow an organization to look at their processes, their internal processes, And it includes a feasibility and, as you mentioned, a risk evaluation. So evaluating the risk of the technology, making sure that the technology is tailored for the organization, but also understanding what are the biggest pain points and how could we deploy the fastest and the smallest piece of the technology for the users to try, have in their hands, understand, and demonstrate the ROI. So before going all the way with the technology, really understand through an AI discovery that will cover most of the processes, understanding the volume, the complexity, who's impacted, from a customer objective, and then identify this low-hanging fruit, this perfect opportunity where we have a strong leader with maybe a technological background, where they have this priority of driving change for the organization, and then deploying a pilot, what we call a pilot, so that users get at a very low cost, have the system in their hands, understanding, and then we could build from this first initiative. But having a clear perspective of the opportunities within an organization, being able to capture the information, such as the technical requirements, the regulations that may apply from one initiative to another might be slightly different, and be able to synchronize and harmonize this understanding of what AI could do within the organization at a higher level, so that there's a buy-in as well from all layers in the organization, is a very in our perspective, sound way to establish a roadmap, and that first critical initiative that most of the time is the kickoff, is the go, no go, to further evaluate AI as it is successfully deployed and as users confirm that there's an ROI, benefits, and that allows to address most of the change management, the early change management challenges within an organization.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. The first thing that I think comes to everybody's mind is when we're talking about AI is ChatGPT. They have established themselves as the category king. And it is a very useful tool. It is very inexpensive for what it's able to do. But it isn't the end all be all. I think it's a great tool for people to begin with and start to experiment with so they can get kind of a sense of what AI is capable of. But could you kind of expand on maybe other tools that exist within the lab that are AI empowered that you've seen, you're aware of, or maybe just on in a more broader general perspective, what does the audience have to look forward to beyond your basic large language model?
So first, large language model, nobody could dispute that they're useful, especially for text-based tasks, but they're certainly not the one-size-fits-all for all issues. They have generated incorrect health information, which could be putting people's lives at risk. So they need to be used wisely, where they could bring the benefits. We use a wide range of AI technologies, and we always use the technologies that are best fitted to address the challenge. So technology that will be easy to deploy, easy to understand, white box as possible, so that it could be easily validated based on the environment where it is deployed, and that could be maintained at low cost. Because again, if you have the very fancy system, but it's very, very costly to maintain over time, then it's gonna be very hard to keep it up to date and maintain the innovation. So we have a wide range of technologies, such as we rely on reasoning system, we rely on natural language processing, open information extraction. As you know, a lot of data is in the form of text within pharmaceutical companies, so we need to be ready to work with these data. We have biostatisticians that could explore different techniques. We have such as clustering, for instance, that is relevant in clinical trials. And we have as well used large language models to generate some text data, some reports as well. I would say that we use some technologies that are really recent, but we also use some AI technologies that have been around for 20 years. You know, we've just started to talk about AI, but it's been around for a long time. And I would say that in some instances, based on the regulations and what needs to be accomplished by our customers, sometimes it's a more simple and technology that's been around for a long time that is the most suited to answer the needs. So based on the challenge, the relevant technology will select for our customers.
Yeah. I want to get into compliance because that's a big concern from industry, as rightfully it should be. Before I jumped in there, I did want to just insert an opinion I have about the movement into AI, which is I remember in the early 2000s when the internet was, kind of taking off and people were, big into developing software solutions and, to create databases and get away from Excel. And one of the things that I would offer to the audience is definitely leverage technology, leverage AI. But I would caution them to create their own intricate solutions. And the reason being is while they'll have the capability to do that, they're not a software company and they're not going to have the backing of an organization that's constantly pushing the edge of what's possible. And they will start to fall behind and essentially become irrelevant. So definitely look, you don't have to go big. You can start small. You can dip your toe in. You can go low and slow and de-risk and all these things. But I would fight the urge to create a lot of homegrown systems because it will be great today. It won't be great tomorrow because you just won't be able to keep up with the rest of the industry. So with that comment aside, let's talk about compliance because everybody wants to be, more cost efficient, faster, accurate, and we have to do all this in a regulated environment. So, can you just kind of speak about some of the main considerations as it pertains to compliance?
Yes, absolutely. So obviously, in this circumstances, we need to align with the GLP regulations, international standards, as well as AI specific related regulations. These are still being established. I would say we've relied a lot in the past on the European guidelines. Um, Different regulatory bodies are currently revisiting their stance on AI, which is really good, really refreshing. It provides with a lot more guidance than when we started 10 years ago. It's great to be able to rely on more guidance as it becomes more and more clear. However, there's still a component where we need to sometimes take a stance and make sure that the AI that we propose to the customers are going to be the strongest one and are going to be compliant. And sometimes it involves, for instance, not relying on taking the learnings offline. So we'd rather freeze the AI and not allow it to, I would say, learn by itself autonomously in a production environment, because this way we can't control that it's the results and we can keep its validated state. So I would say that we need to take some decision that may mean we'll need to do some upgrades manually. I would say manually, like the human will need to decide if the new version of the AI that learned by itself is really better than the one that was deployed successfully and validated initially. So these are the type of decisions we need to take in order to make sure that the results that will be produced still will be acceptable results, validated results, and those that are meeting the initial expectations of the customer. So based on that, we need to conduct quality risk management to assess and control risk related to patient safety. And that's on an ongoing basis. Make sure that each and every one of the decision we're making in terms of selecting the technology, deploying it, selecting the use cases, they promote product quality and data integrity. Most of the people are familiar with ALCOA. So principles that are reliable, relevant, representative, and abundant for its intended purpose. So that's at the heart of each and every deployment we're making, and that's part of the SLAs we need to respect when we deploy a system. Of course, I've talked about a lot about validation, and from the beginning of the conversation, we set clear expectations about where we want to go, the results we want to achieve, and this translates in the final testing and the validation so that everyone is aware of what we're trying to achieve, and the validation is done accordingly so that we know that the system will perform as it was intended from the start. I would say assess and qualify system suppliers. So of course, we're a supplier. We need to abide. We need to go through audits. So that's fundamental with each and every one of our customers in terms of validating the supplier that's going to be working with you. Super important that they go through the internal protocols and processes that are put in place in terms of supplier qualification. I would say a very important aspect is the explainability. How could you interpret, explain the results? Is the system white box enough? In some research environment, we're allowed to go a little more unsupervised because of the nature of the regulation. So we would allow the system to come up to be a little more, I would say a little more unsupervised. I would say it like that because of the nature of the process and because we could tolerate some risk. We're at the research phase. All the results will be validated physically in the lab. So we could tolerate that the system will try to come up with some results that are new. And this is how we, the first iteration of the project we're working on with Celcarta, this was our original mandate to come up with some unforeseen, innovative results about a given disease so that we could define a path towards a cure. And that you do by letting the AI be a little more innovative. And in that specific case, it made sense. But in some other cases, we're in full commercial, supporting manufacturing processes, and I'm moving from GLP to GMP, but in this case where the results are expected, we can't go that route. So based on the environment we're working on and with, we'll adjust the technology based on the risk and based on the tolerance of the risk for that specific process. The governance, I would say, is super important. So most of the organizations we're working with have governance for data integrity, data security, but they still need to be adapted to fit with the new AI reality. So working with your AI supplier, in our case, working with our customers to review the procedures, the processes, the SOPs, so that they could cover the AI deployment and the use of AI for good, obviously, deploy strong governance processes to interpret, to explain the results of AI is key. Now the records, maintaining comprehensive records of AI system design, validation, operations, such as any other system, but making sure everything is robustly documented is super key, and the measures to protect sensitive data and prevent unauthorized access and manipulation of AI system is super, super important. We're moving towards the cloud, so it's super important that organization, they understand how the data will be used, how the data will train some AI that belong to some supplier is also okay. So all of our customers, they retain the learnings, and these learnings could be deployed in a future upgraded version of the algorithm. So these are all questions that need to be asked and answered in order to protect not only the raw data, the results, but also the learnings that are generated by running the AI that may belong to a third party on your own data. And finally, last but not least, I'm going back to change management because it's key. People are everything. We're talking about technology a lot, but without people, AI cannot thrive. AI needs a strong ecosystem of strong human beings that support the technology in order to thrive. So providing training, building AI literacy among the personnel, making sure that people understand what's in it for them, the benefits, and understand how to operate AI and how AI operates.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, this has really been insightful. I'm certain that people listening can feel a little bit of comfort in knowing that when they're looking to move forward with their lab and dip their toe into AI, that it was big and scary, and now it's less big and scary, and there's some good things to think about as we start to move forward into this new world. Before we close, is there anything else that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, I get I'm gonna go back on the importance of the people in the process and human beings, because we get a lot of people asking us if humans will be replaced by AI, and definitely, as we mentioned, I don't believe we're moving towards that. I believe that people's role will be bona fide, and I'm taking the example of the washing machine. We stopped washing manually clothes. It was replaced by a washing machine, but we still have very busy lives. We
Hmm.
have other things that we do. We have elevated our standard of living. So for me, it's a very simple example that illustrates how AI can help us and help increase our standard of living, help us do more things, live happier, increase better products, safer products, less expensive products on the market, so that both employees of pharmaceutical companies as well as patients could benefit from AI, but always keeping people in the loop and making sure the AI empowers people in taking the best decision and having more fun jobs and being able to achieve more with the resources we have.
Yeah, awesome. Catherine, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was fantastic. And for everybody listening, as always, if you find conversations like this valuable, please share it with a colleague or your professional network. If you haven't already, subscribe to get updates of new episodes at thefdagroup.com/podcast, and follow the FDA Group on LinkedIn. If you need to connect about project or resource needs, head over to thefdagroup.com to get in touch, or feel free to connect with me personally on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time.